everyone, and welcome back to Shelf Life. My name is Simran, and this is my podcast, Shelf Life, where we talk about books, their philosophies, but most importantly, our personal relationship with the book. And although it's been a huge break, today I'm back with a really cool guest. And I think it's been worth the wait for you because I'm really excited to do this episode. It's the first time I'm talking to someone who's, a writer and who's my age. And who's already accomplished so much. So I'm really glad to be doing this. And yeah, today we have with us Sankalpita, and she became an author, a published author at the age of 14, which is so cool. She wrote her first book, which is, I mean, Google says it's fantasy fiction, but I would say it's more mythology based. And yeah, it's a really cool book. It's called Metamorphosis, and we're going to be talking about it more. But firstly, welcome, Sankalpita. I'm really glad you're here. And yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself that we don't already know.
Thank you for inviting me, Simran. And honestly, the coolest person on this podcast is you because this is such a cool platform that you've created. You've always been such an outgoing, such an amazing person. And thank you so much for this. I absolutely love this opportunity. So,
Thank you. Yeah.
a little bit about myself is that so books were obviously like very cliche backstory. Books were my escape, tormented throughout school by being not like other kids, and books were my escape. And, was reading under the benches all the time and got caught because of it. And, very cliche, very Bollywood backstory. And yeah, there are no films going to be made on it, but like, just wanted to let you guys know. And recently, I went to the US for a short course in writing through a scholarship program sponsored by the US State Department, where I met these amazing people, and I started a writing forum with them. And yeah, so that's where I'm at right now with regards to writing. My first and only published book was published when I was 14. Of course, I have had other forays into the world of writing, especially writing for newspapers and writing for publications and writing short stories, but never something as substantial as my book. So, in some senses, it is one of my most daring creations. I wouldn't say greatest because let's be honest, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's not. It's okay. Well, it's not like I'm no Mozart, but like yeah, and. Right now I run a writing forum with my friends from around the world, from about 14 countries. And this book is also special to me because it is about Indian mythology, which is very close to my heart. I was obsessed with it. I was way too obsessed with it before it became very cool through these online OTT platform shows about Indian
Yeah,
mythology,
that's
that
true.
incorporated mythology.
Yeah, they
Sorry.
have like a little bit of it, just to kind of show off a little bit. Yeah, I get that.
Show off. Yeah. So, yeah, that is about it, about the book, about why I wrote it. And it is my very own Brahmastra, but probably with no CGI.
Yeah,
So,
thank God
yeah,
for that.
thank God for that. We
Yeah,
saw how
so
that fire looked.
yeah, I know. I mean, I'm not a huge fan. I think that is my problem with mythology in not just visual format, but I think even in books sometimes I feel like they take it a little too far. But I mean, we'll get to that later on. But first I want to talk about yeah, I want to talk about you as a writer. So you started off. Did you start off at 14, or have you been writing before that?
So I have been writing for quite some time. It started off as essays and poetry, and then I won the Hindustan Times Award for essay writing. And I know people say that no validation should define how you are as a writer, but it kind of it made me feel very confident in who I was as a writer. I think, and so I thought of it more seriously, and I wanted to write a book, and I've always been obsessed with villains. because it's, and apparently it's a family trait, because my nephew came up to me yesterday and told me that he loves it when dinosaurs eat people. So apparently it's a
Okay.
family trait.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been
That's
obsessed with
interesting.
villains. Yeah, that's very interesting. So I've been obsessed with villains, and I thought that I should write something based on that, because there's so much written on, good over evil and heroes.
Yeah.
So after that, my writing journey began more seriously. I began to take part in other competitions, in other forums, in other, connecting with other writers, and that gave me a lot of joy. So yeah, that's how it started.
Yeah, I think that is how it usually is. I mean, especially with young authors or young writers, they have been writing for a while before even their first publication comes out, and most people don't, realize that. They think that the first one is, the magnum opus or something. But of course, you have been writing for a while, and how is that for you? I think just like you said, a book is a huge format. I mean, it's like the feature film of, if I had to compare with visual art forms. So it's like that. It's the biggest thing possibly people talk about or see. So for you at 14, was that a daunting task, or did you just go in with you know just that fun mindset or something to explore?
So honestly, it was a little bit of both, because when I started off, it was something about I had a fun mindset. I wanted to explore. I wanted to do it because I wanted to do it. Not because I thought I was going to be a great writer, not because I thought I was going to be. If I may take an example from more mythology-based stories, not because I thought I was going to be the next Amish Tripathi,
Yeah.
but because I just wanted to, have fun and just like have let other people have a peek into my mind.
Mm.
And which is why in my book, Metamorphosis is the cover.
Eee,
The
she's got it. Yes.
illustrations in the even the illustrations in the book are have been done by me
Hmm.
with some help from my mom, because I wanted it to genuinely be a peek into my mind, into the story that I have created in my mind, and I wanted it to connect with the reader that way. But I never thought of it as a serious thing unless my mother actually said that, you should take it seriously. If you're going to do something, you will finish it and you will do it well, you
Hmm.
know and it's not that she expected me to be good at it, or she expected me to be, wonderful at it. She just wanted me to finish what I'd started and be good
Yeah.
at it, I think, which is a very
Considering
common
she's a
Indian
writer as
parent
well,
sentiment.
right? Yeah, she's a writer as
Yes,
well, so
considering
it makes sense.
considering she's a writer as well. And weirdly enough, her writing journey was also had also just started at that time. So both
Oh,
of us, in
wow.
a sense, started our writing journeys together.
Really?
And
That's so cool.
because yeah,
That
yeah,
is
I mean, she
really cool.
obviously was way more established than I ever will be or am.
Yeah.
But she was also like on the first leg of what has been a very illustrious, very wonderful sort of writing journey for
Yeah.
her. And before that, she's of course an educationist, and education she's a scientist, but by profession she's generally an educationist.
Wow.
So of course she's very multifaceted, and hearing that from like someone who's not only my mother but my hero, and also like the person who is obviously going to ground me if I don't finish it. So I had to finish it, and I had that pressure on me then that I have to write it well. So I flipped half of it last minute, when I was reaching out to publishers. I flipped the second half of it because I wanted it to be better. I wanted it to be more succinct. I wanted it to, convey things better to the reader.
Hmm.
So I flipped the second half of it and I finished it, and that was very daunting for me, because even though it's not a very thick book, as you can see,
Yeah.
it has required some amount of world building, and it has required some
Correct.
amount of,
Of course.
a basic flow, a basic plot flow. And of course, I think now that I have obviously grown as a writer, I look at it and I think I could have, done this better, and I could have not done
Of
this, and I could have
course.
made it so much, and I could have done so much more with it. But at that time, it was meant to be a book by a 14-year-old for other 13, 14-year-olds,
Yeah.
So I think I think I'm still very proud of that.
Of course. I mean, you definitely should be, for more reasons than one. And yeah, I think the next question that I wanted to ask you really was that how often do you get when are you going to put out your next book, or when are you coming out with a new publication? How often do you get that?
I get that a lot. I really get that a lot because I'm in law school now, and I get people
Wow.
coming up to me asking when are you going to, put out your next book? When am I going to write my next paper? Like, I don't know. I am just struggling.
I feel you.
But the thing is that I've left this book on a semi cliffhanger.
Okay.
Like, it's not exactly a cliffhanger that needs another book per se, but
Okay.
it's a semi cliffhanger where I've given myself the opportunity to someday pick up the series again and complete it. And in fact, for a brief moment I still did, but like, there's not a compelling enough story, because the story by itself was so complete,
Right.
not in the sense of the final fight, or not in the sense of how the villain was like, or not in the sense of good over evil, but
Hmm.
just in the sense of a story about this particular place that I've written about. Can I name the kind of place that
Yeah,
I've
yeah, yeah.
written about, or is that
Go
a
ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
I don't this is not that's not a spoiler because you get this very early on.
Yeah.
So it's about a school, right? And I wanted to write about that school first and foremost, not about the final climax, something, but I wanted to build the characters that are already there first. And I think this book does it well. Like, I think this book um you know explains and dissects the idiosyncrasies of the people at the schools, which is more than just a quirk, as you will read, but it does it well. It doesn't follow the movie format or the motion picture format of there having to be a hero and then a villain and then a damsel in distress and yada yada yada. It is about this community that is there and why this community is so different than the others.
Yeah.
And it also follows the themes of redemption and of second chances, which is so important to me,
Hmm.
especially as a law student now.
Oh wow, that was a really cool connection you just made there. And yeah, I mean, thinking about it, it does make sense. The fact that what is personal to you has come out in the way that you wrote, and the way that you crafted a story, even if it's completely fictional, right? The fact that there is you in it is so beautiful. And I again, like, I'm more than excited. I mean, don't have words to put in, but I'm really excited to get into this book, especially because, coming back to our topic of mythology today, I am someone who's not read that much mythology. I've read literally like the basics that you people would uh, call. I've read uh, a little bit of Greek mythology, which is Madeline Miller. I've read, Circe and uh, Song of Achilles, and I think when it comes to India, I've just about skimmed through some of Devdutt Patnaik's books and Amish Tripathi's books. But yeah, I'm a complete novice, and I'm hoping that you've obviously read more and you have more of an idea about the genre itself. So can you tell me a little bit about why you like this genre and what really enticed you enough to write a book about it? And what are the books that you read when it comes to this genre?
I spy a palace of illusions behind me,
Yeah, that's one of the
which
other books that
I love,
yeah, me too.
which I
I really like
absolutely
that one.
love.
Really like that one.
What about mythology? That's a very interesting question. I think the concept that a lot of people know about mythology is from oral tradition, in a sense that you must have heard about it from your grandfather, from your grandmother, from your parents, maybe some parts of it, especially if it's religion-based mythology in that sense, right? So my father knows one story, which is, my father is not a writer. He's never been a writer, and he's very clear about that. And he knows one story, which is the Ramayana. So every night when I fall asleep, and if my mother has some work, my father used to read me out stories. My mother used to make
Wow.
up stories for me, but my father used to tell me the same story, which is the Ramayana, over and over and over again. So
Okay.
of course, I started after the fifth time I started critically analyzing it because how do you not listen to
Lovely.
Same story again and again without really analyzing it. And I think, contrary to the popular notion that all mythology is just the story that we've been listening to all this while, maybe through oral mediums or maybe just reading about, there are actually many different versions to every mythological story that there
Yeah.
is. So there is a there is a version that is always, of course, history is written by the victors, right? So there is a version that is always very favorable to the people who are seen as the good guys in the story. There is a
Right.
version that is more sympathetic to the people who are seen as the bad guys in the story. There is a version depending on region as well. There is a
Yeah.
version depending on whether you are from Bengal, whether you're from the north. There are all these different versions.
Yeah.
And there's also versions about very minor characters in these stories, characters who were maybe killed off with 2 seconds of screen time in the
Yeah.
original story. you know so I think that's what fascinated me the most, because these are not stories set in stone. These
Yeah.
are stories that are fluid, and even with the belief that the people have in the story, which i
Hmm.
which I very, very highly respect. I highly respect the belief that people have in the stories. But even with that kind of a belief, these stories, the nitty-gritties of these stories are extremely fluid. These aren't
Yeah.
set in stone. To think about these characters as real people is very
Hmm.
easy, because much like real people, there are different versions of these stories. Like,
Right.
Simran, I'm sure that one friend of yours thinks of you in a particular way, while your mother thinks of you in a different way, right? And it's
100%.
not that both don't. It's not
Yeah.
as if both don't love you. It's just that they know different versions of you, right? So
Of
if
course.
I were to write a biography on your life, right? It would be it would be it would be a accumulation of those, and it would ultimately be a story that I want to tell about your life, even if it's based completely on the facts of your life.
Hmm.
So I think that's what makes it interesting, to
Yeah.
to accept these characters with their flaws and all, because they are written in such a real way, because of the varied versions of them, and because of how they've used, all of these traditions of the past,
Yeah.
these the role of women in these stories. I think that's what
Yeah.
makes it very interesting as a genre, more than maybe genres like romance, which I also love. it's
Hmm.
it's a great genre. I'm not dissing it, but I think more than that, there are so many different versions of the same character here, that it's really easy to mold a story based on that, and it's really interesting to do so.
Absolutely. And I think,
Also, what
yeah, 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 go ahead.
No, no, sorry. You'd also asked what kind of stories I read. I, of
Yeah.
course, read Amish Tripathi, Devdutt Patnaik, again, Chitra Banerjee, and but I also, at the same time, I think I've read these stories, and I hate that I can't recollect their name right now. But they are basically
Yeah.
the Asura series and the Vijaya and the Ajaya
Um,
series.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
These
Heard
are
of
book
it. I can't remember the author either.
Asura and Ajaya.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. But these are books from the point of view, sorry,
that's fine.
maybe not from the point of view, but talking about the so-called villains in these mythological stories, and
Yeah.
these books are more sympathetic to them, in the sense that they view them as human,
Hmm.
and not as someone who is off the bat a character with only dark shades, or a character with only light shades, as a
Yeah.
character with a morally gray side. And I
Yeah.
think that is what is very interesting. And I've again read all of these snippets and these many books about mythology before actually writing this book.
Yeah. That makes sense. And I think you said a very interesting thing that mythology, even the way that these stories were told, had very varied angles to them, and every character had a story to tell, and that story was respected. But usually, what we've grown up with, whether it is seeing these stories come to life through television serials of Mahabharat and Ramayana and everything, it is a sort of trope, right? There is the really good guy, and then there's the really bad guy. There's the Ravan and the Ram, and then of course the story goes on and on. And I think that is usually what we saw growing up, and that's what we heard from stories as well. And I think now that tradition of kind of retelling stories and reimagining them, especially with even Amish Tripathi has done that with Sita, right? He is reimagined Sita as the warrior of Mithila is there, and even the fact that a lot of these Greek mythological tales have been retold and contemporized. What else? I think the most interesting one that I came across recently was Vayanad's Ramayan, where um, Ravan is actually reimagined as the hero, and he's supposed to be this Adivasi hero who sort of fights for his people and is struck down by Ram, who's this Brahminical figure. It was very interesting to look at, and I think that's again it's really beautiful the fact that we can do that. But do you think that gets sort of it goes into a little bit of a tricky territory, because of course there is the religion aspect to it, the fact that people have their religious beliefs that are molded by these stories, but also just how do you do it justice? How do you do that story justice while also retaining the original um, core of it? There is a certain idea behind why Ramayana exists, right? It's the good over evil story, the quintessential good over evil story. But if you're retelling that, how do you maintain that theme?
So I think I've always maintained, whenever I've talked to people about this, is that I fully respect people's beliefs, and I share some of them. I share some of them and I fully respect their beliefs. But at the same time, I think everyone should be willing to, listen to different point of views about their beliefs, and they should be tolerant of it,
Yeah.
not always accepting of it. You don't have to love it, but you shouldn't hate me for it
Yeah.
if I'm offering a different perspective. And it is not at all like I'm villainizing the heroes in my book, the so-called heroes in my book, and the so-called, and it's not like I'm completely redeeming the so-called villains in my book, right? Because there have been very questionable decisions taken by some of the characters that my book talks about. Extremely questionable, extremely morally gray, right? But the book simply puts forth the idea that instead of seeing these actions as the act itself, you should see them contextually, right? You should see them keeping in mind the different versions of the myth itself, right?
Right.
Like there is the Ramcharitmanas, which is one version of the Ramayana, and then there are these multiple sort of versions of the Ramayana, right? And I think that you as in the reader, right, should keep that in mind before sort of judging any book on this topic. And again, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing or mistaking any names, because this example was just off the top of my head. But my whole idea is that it's not disrespectful to any myth. It's not disrespectful to any legend. It's not disrespectful to any belief, right? Again, you should be willing to sort of question everything at some point, and you should be accepting of other viewpoints. And at the same time, as you said, right, the book, the version that you just spoke about, where Ravana was this Adivasi
Hero.
was this Adivasi hero who was very knowledgeable, who was extremely sort of extremely protective, fiercely protective of his people, right? And those are great qualities. That is the context that is so missing from these stories. That is the context that is often not looked at. Of course, when I was 14, I didn't think of any context beyond I want to write a book about villains. I didn't think of a lot of the context, right? But even at 14, I knew that I need to accept and respect that my book is probably going to be very different to someone else's belief, and my belief is going to be very different from someone else's belief as well. And all of those things can coexist, right? As long as we are respectful. Which is why I've made it a point not to be disrespectful towards anyone's belief in my book. But at the same time, I have offered an alternative to certain things that are seemingly set in stone, but they are in fact just ever changing, and the morality of these things is ever changing. Like up till a few years ago, adultery was illegal in India, right?
Yeah.
And now it is no longer so, because people have understood that it's a much more morally gray concept than they had initially thought of, right? And this is not, no one defends adultery. No one's like, you will go and cheat on your wife today. No one says that. But they're just accepting of the fact that cheating happens because of a myriad of reasons, and not just because the person is inherently a bad person and deserves to be jailed for it.
Yeah, I think that is a pretty solid point that you made. I mean, it is the fact that we as a society have evolved to understand that people are more than just good and bad. I mean, everybody has gray shades. I don't think anybody at at this stage is idealized to that extent. I mean, there could be exceptions for that, but generally usually that doesn't happen. But I think that's what that's again, I think I would pose that question to you, because you are a writer and a reader of mythological stories as well. Where is that line for you? Like, do you think creative liberties could be used to completely shift the narrative? Like, for example, the Ramayana story, right, where Ravan is the hero and he is supposed to be the warrior who protects, right? Do you think something like that could also be done, or do you think that is pushing it a little bit too far?
I think in an ideal world, there should be nothing called pushing it a little too far,
Right.
right? I also think in an ideal world, which is a contradictory statement that I'm about to make. So, like, hold your, yeah, I know like a lot of people are going to mind me saying this, but I think in an ideal world, also people's identity is respected. And if one believes that their identity is so tied to the story or so tied to a legend, right, that their identity, the core of it, is hurt by such a creative liberty, right, that should also be taken into consideration in an ideal world, right?
Right.
But however, in the real world, there are certain things that are protected, there are certain things that are sacred, right? Because again, because of religion and because of multiple things, right? And that should be respected, and there are laws to respect it, in fact.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that completely curbing another person's freedom of speech and expression, you know, because of a belief, is can be slightly problematic.
Yeah.
And it can also lead to very archaic and very regressive ideas, which leads people to criminalize the speech of people, not just of people whom they disagree with regards to their point of view, but people whose very existence they disagree with, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's supposed to criminalize the speech of marginalized people. It's supposed to criminalize the speech of minorities, whereas probably a more privileged person could get away with saying this stuff. They could get away with that sort of stuff, citing the freedom of speech and expression. At the same time, a lot of people twist these words to mean that you can disrespect someone's identity. That you can disrespect someone saying that, oh, you're a woman, so you should be so and so. Oh, you're a member of the LGBTQ plus community, so you should be so and so. That is not what I'm saying, right? And again, these parts of one's identity are protected classes, right? But something that protected classes legally in many countries, and also protected classes in the sense that this is irrevocably someone's identity, right? Like, you cannot question the womanhood of any woman, right? You can't question the womanhood of any woman, and you can't make sexist comments based on that, based on her womanhood, right? But at the same time, right, if you're writing a book about something as sensitive as religion, right, of course you should take care as to not say anything that is blatantly disrespectful of that religion, or that is blatantly hate speech against that religion, or puts people of that religion, especially if it's a community that's marginalized in your country, that blatantly puts those people in a dangerous position, But I don't think that every single religious belief, especially when it's something like mythology, which in a sense is again it's public domain that is a little bit further away from religious practices itself or the religion itself, right? I think that should be utilized fully, and people should be able to use their freedom of speech and expression fully. And even when I'm saying that people should keep in mind and be respectful, it doesn't mean that people should immediately curb their freedom of expression, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it doesn't hurt to be respectful, because we live in
Yeah.
a community and we live in a world that is based on respect and basic dignity towards one another.
Right.
But what I absolutely hate is that the criminalization of freedom of speech affects the most marginalized first.
Of
So
course.
if today someone from a community who is extremely marginalized makes a point about how certain legends or certain myths, right, criminalize their existence, if that person makes such a comment, they will be the first one to be criminally detained detained under, say, blasphemy laws or restrictions on this speech. They will be and it's not even by the state. They will be hunted down by the public. They will have to face the worst brunt of it. So I think that criminalization of freedom of speech, unless and until it is hate speech and it is extremely disrespectful of that person's religious identity, unless and until that is the case, I think that such criminalization of freedom of speech doesn't work. But respect always does. Respecting other religious beliefs, respecting your own community's religious beliefs, respecting your own religious beliefs is extremely important, I feel.
Yeah, that's you just put it up really well, because that is something that people have been talking about, especially more now, given just everything that's happening in the world, not just our country. But yeah, that's a very interesting thing. The fact that something like that seeps into the way we tell our stories as well, right? We have to be mindful of the listener, even though we are the ones telling the story. We are not just telling them to an empty crowd. It is going to someone, and someone is listening always. So it is important to sort of be mindful of that. I agree. And I think one of the other things that I was thinking about when it comes to mythology is the fact that now, of course, more contemporary retellings of mythological stories have been happening, right? So, for example, if I look at the great Indian novel by Shashi Tharoor that sort of took the Mahabharat story and retold it in a more pre-independence, post-independence sort of era. So when it comes to something like that, and especially that's happened a lot with Greek stories, um, how do you retain the magic that the original story had? Right, there were so many elements of magical realism that you can't remove from mythology, right? That's what made it what it was. The fact that you could just picture up anything and you would believe it. It's the suspension of belief idea, right? The fact that I feel like that is a little compromised when it comes to contemporary retellings, even though, of course, it's more relatable, or I don't want to use that word; it's so overused. But it's more, you can connect with the story possibly better because of its context. Do you feel like that's something that is missing, or that's something that needs to be sort of um, thought about more, the fact that we don't have that magical element to it? Do you think it matters? Yeah.
I love magical realism. I think it's the coolest.
Me
I
too.
think that it's incredibly important, of course, in making a story what it is. And a lot of the stories that I write now, like right now, especially short stories, always have an element of magic realism in them. And I think that makes it more, sorry for being cliche, magical in a sense. It makes the story, it's like that little touch of pixie dust on the story that makes you want to read it.
Yeah.
Like you could have a story about the most boring person on earth, and there could be magical realism involved, and suddenly, suddenly the person becomes interesting, which is what I did with my own life. So I think it's so important, right? Like, of course you want to live in a world where chariots are flying,
Yeah.
right? But when we already live in a world with aeroplanes, will that be interesting enough?
Oh,
Will
that was
chariots
a really
flying be,
interesting thing. Wow. Yeah, I never thought
will
of it
it
that way.
will it be
Wow.
so will it be interesting enough? And I'm so sorry if I'm interrupting you at any point, just tell me.
No, 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 go
But
ahead.
but yeah, so to make it more interesting in today's world, you have to add more than just the magic realism that these stories originally had. You
Hmm.
know, the sort of the spice that these stories originally have are what makes this legends what they are. But at the same time, if you're going to contemporize it, then you automatically have to change something. So if you're even going to say the same thing to a contemporary audience, especially if you're saying, if you're retelling it to an audience which is not familiar with mythology, which is maybe not interested in mythology, and if you're contemporizing it for them, then you have to then you have to take certain creative liberties, and I think that is completely justified. If you even the most banal connection can become
Hmm.
interesting if you really take the civil liberty, if you take the creative liberty to connect it properly, to make it magical enough. And I think that makes the civil liberties worth it, like the creative liberties. Why am I saying civil liberties? It's not law
The
class.
law, yeah, the lawyer in you is coming out. Yeah, but wow, that was so interesting what you said. I mean, that is what good stories do. They nudge you towards a certain thing. They ignite something inside you so that you can find the magic in something, even like you said, something so banal as a touch me not plant, or whatever it is, right? Anything. And that is what good writers do. And wow, that was really something. So I think, do you feel like, of course, I mean, mythology, the point of mythology, or like, the unintentional uh, consequence of mythology, is that it is retold and reimagined uh, throughout time, right? I mean, at any given time you could be retelling a story that was written, I don't know, thousands of years ago. So, but do you feel like at some point, we would start creating new mythologies? I mean, is that something that happens? It's something in the picture, that the fact that you could write a new epic and then it becomes a sort of a mythical story. How does that work?
um, Only if my teachers aren't listening to this. And this is not to justify plagiarism, but I think everything ever written, everything that was ever to be written, okay, has already been written. There is no original thought left.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
done. You know, it's all done. And you can just only ever build on it. Like you can tell me any story and I can connect it to some other story that's in some way been written, right?
Mm.
Because every story ever written is in some way connected, because that is just how it is. I mean, we go more into the idea of there can be no original thought, you know, but that doesn't mean that you stop trying. People
Yeah.
aren't dependent on creating the best, most exciting, the most interesting story. People are more dependent on reading your people more need to read
Hmm.
your story and like it and enjoy, right? So
Yeah.
if you are taking a pre-existing mythological concept and basing your book or your movie or your play on it, right, you
Hmm.
damn you better damn well make it interesting enough,
Yeah.
right, for people to actually want to sit through the duration of that piece. And I think that I think that is why these stories will be retold forever and ever. And maybe we will come up with our own mythologies, right? Because
Yeah.
the only new thing that we in our era have, that maybe the people in the era before us didn't have, but again, they did imagine it. They didn't have it, but they did imagine it, is technology, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe our mythology will be a Black Mirror-ish mythology, the show, like
Yeah.
Black Mirror kind of mythology. I read this series of books, and I used to be obsessed with them. They're called Shh, It's a Secret. Okay. And
Okay.
they're a book about this. They're a book that is completely dependent on like quirky characters and just the most amazing things happening. And it's written by a person called Pseudonymous Bosch. I'm not kidding. That is this person's name. Like, it is very obviously a pseudonym, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that, this has never been done before. It can never be replicated because it's so new. The concept was so new. It was about these three kids, who are always stuck up in some mystery, right? The concept, but the concept of the actual story and the actual mystery, which I don't want to spoil for people, is so new, and the characters are so new. But at the same time, three kids stuck up in a mystery at all times, doesn't that remind you of Harry Potter again?
Yeah.
Doesn't that remind you of maybe Percy Jackson? Every book ever written, like, I'm taking these names because again, these are the more contemporary, like YA kind of novels. And doesn't this remind you of, again, every book ever?
That is so lovely, and I think I agree. Something, if there had to be like an epic, on this really grand scale that had to be set in today's day and age, it would have to do with technology and just the kind of technocratic society that we live in today. And I think the thing that I was thinking of was probably Game of Thrones. The books would come close to present day, not present day, but I think something of a mythical scale, right? Something that people might be telling and retelling for centuries, not centuries, but years later on. I think the story of Game of Thrones probably could match that. But I don't know. This is all, everybody has their own favorite. And I think what you said was really important about how stories need to just connect with people for to be good. That is literally the only criteria. It doesn't even have to be, the most beautifully written prose wise, but it just needs to connect and it needs to move people, and it has to find a home in its readers. And I think that's what most people get wrong about storytelling and about writing and reading. That's what the whole podcast is about, the fact that people think of reading as a task. They think of it as something that needs to be you have to sit down with a book and really like force yourself to read those pages and pages of stories. But really, it's just about connecting. If you connect with a good book, you know that you're going to spend time on it. You won't be able to stay away, and that is the magic right there. So yeah, I think this was really fun to talk about with you. And I think if you have, like, as a final thought, if you have something to say to listeners who might be, or what people who might be watching, who are thinking about mythology or trying to write mythology, is there something that you could suggest to them probably?
So I think if you're a first time writer undertaking a huge task, like a book or even a short story or anything, I think you should stick to a place that you're very familiar with. And you should stick to a place that you have been to
Yeah.
or that you have lived in. Better yet, that you have lived in. Because I have based my book based on somewhere that I've never been to. I've never been to this place. I want to go very much. I want to go. And I hope I've been respectful to everyone who is from the place and from around the place. But really, all I can do is hope. And that's because, and that is also the reason why the particular characteristics of place haven't really seeped into the story itself as much as maybe anything that I write now would. And that universality does not work in setting your story in a particular place. Universality never works. Specifics work so much better.
Yeah.
Now, to writers who want to write about mythology, um, be respectful. I don't know if I should encourage you to do so in this particular climate. Just in general, I think it's a very I think it's a slightly scary time for anyone exercising their. I think it's a scary time for anyone exercising their like
Liberties.
exercising their liberties when it comes to writing books, because it's so common nowadays to just have protests and have book burnings across the world. And but I think that shouldn't dampen the fear that someday you will be the fear that someday you will have someone hating on you shouldn't dampen your spirit right now. And I just want to say that keep on writing, keep on making mistakes, and yeah, just be a bad writer, maybe. So maybe I can like be better than you. I don't know. But no, I hope all of you are like great. All of you are great. And if I may, Simran, can I give out the name of my the group I run with my friends? If anyone
Yeah,
wants to
yeah.
read
I
our
was just
writings
gonna
and
ask
like just
you about
interact
that.
with us.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you to, mention the name.
So right now I run a group called Mind Melt Worldwide, and it's mindmeltworldwide.com. And you can just search it up on the net. And it's also there on Instagram. And we put out writings, and it's writers from all over the world. So our experiences, our lives, our backstories are so different that I'm sure you'll enjoy it. And if you want, you can pick up a copy of Metamorphosis Legends Come to Life. It's available online, and I'm sure it'll give you a new perspective, or maybe a perspective that you already agree with. In which case, hey, hi, we make friends. And yeah, thank you so much. And my heart really goes out to everyone who loves mythological stories and everyone who believes in mythological stories. And
We're going to be linking like all of your socials and the website that you mentioned. All of it is going to be in the description, so check that out, everybody who's listening. And also, if you have any more suggestions about books that people could go to for mythology, we'll put that in the description as well. I mean, we don't have any more time right now, but we'll put that in the description. No worries. And yeah, thank you so much, Sankalpita, for coming here and for gracing us. It was genuinely so fun to talk to you, and I think you are doing really good work. And I hope that you grow, multifold as a writer and as a person and as a lawyer. I hope that it's a fun ride for you. Thank you so much for coming here, and thank you guys for watching.
thank you. Please follow. Please follow her. She's
Yeah.
amazing.